Okay, so to get to the bottom of the car, we're going to pull off this panel, and it's held in by all these little clips and a bunch of these 10mm bolts. I have cleverly loosened them before filming. Now what holds you in? Demon. Come out. That too. Maybe I need to do this two-handed. So, this lovely air dam piece does not want to come out around this skid plate. So I'm just going to take the skid plate off. Make sure, of course, I pick that up later. And there. Oh, one last one's holding it all together. So, those bolts take the skid plate out. You can see it shaking there, and then that's holding up the air dam thing. Skid plate is out of the vehicle. This is a substantially heavy piece. You should be ready for some weight to come down on you or have a friend help you. It's pretty solid. And I say this as a guy that works with metal every day. There's two hidden clips that make it harder to get this thing off. These little clips, if you haven't experienced them, are very easy. They're used on vehicles of all kinds. You pry the center out, a little pick tool or a small screwdriver, and the rest of it pops out. And when you put it back in, you push it in, and it clamps it. So this is the subframe of the Trailsport, and if you look up here, you'll see two main front subframe bolts. You'll see no subframe support brackets like on the old Pilot platform. In the rear, you get back here, you'll see that this control arm has got a standard pivoting bushing, not one turned 90 degrees to the world. In the back here, where we've built the axle relocation bracket for the Ridgeline Pilot platform, you know, the last gen of this is totally different, and there's no support brackets back to the unibody either. So this is 100% different chassis. There's nothing shared. There is this odd little fin here. I'm gonna have to look it up what that's for, because it's on one side but not the other. That looks about the same as the last one. The drive shaft looks like it's angled up, and this one looks about parallel. And in the rear, none of the parts are the same. This arm is about 3 inches shorter than on the last generation, and it's got a full-size spare, which is pretty cool. This arm is begging to have a straight one made, and this spring has got quite a curve on it from the start. And I have to wonder if that's because these Trailsports sit at a higher ride height than the standard vehicle. Maybe they put it an inch longer spring, and so it's curved like that because of it. Or maybe all of them are curved. I can't wait for the tech support calls. My springs are curved. It's your fault. They'll never believe me unless I have the video. We have in front of us here a bunch of the parts for a Trailsport, as well as the parts for a CRV. And they're tagged here. This is the CRV strut mount. There is the Trailsport strut mount. Here are the rear spring isolators. So these two are Trailsport. This one is CRV, Accord, and Civic. On the lower part of the spring, here are the right and left Trailsport spring isolators. There is the CRV spring isolator. So as we get deeper into this Pilot Trailsport, we're going to see where these things are the same as the CRV platform and where they're the same as the old platform. There's the new shock mount. They've gone to the same style used on the RAV4 and the Hyundai and Kia Palisade Telluride platform. This is all the rage. Everyone uses a slightly different bolt pattern, but it's all the same style now. I think they get installed faster on the factory floor, is the motivation. So I'm going to take out this subframe bolt here and see how long it is. If you only take out one of them at a time, then you don't drop the whole car. You can see here though, I took out the one with all the other ones bolted up, and you easily have room to put a spacer in there if you need to. So here's the bolt we include with our current 3.5-inch ridgeline kit. And there, I dropped it. Okay, so there are the bolts side by each. We have the one that came out of the subframe, the one we include in our kit. So this one is at least 2 inches longer, if not more. And so that means we can get, well, we're going to try for a 2-inch subframe drop. And we'll see what it takes to get there. There could be hidden systems I don't know anything about that are going to block me. The OEM bolt is 120, and the bolt we have from our other kit is 185. Now I'll pull the subframe bolt out the back to see. Uh-oh. It's different size. That's going to be fun. Alright, so we get the right size socket. Makes it easier. So automatically, if this is a different head size, it's probably going to be a different bolt size. Let's find out. It is bigger. It's definitely longer. Another 10 mil longer, 130. So here's a look at the rear suspension with the wheel off. The shock goes up. This is the quick attach method. We're going to extend that out. Here's your wiring for your electronic parking brake and for your ABS sensor. Here's the brake line. This is a little bit longer, but suspension right now is at full droop. What I'm going to do is unbolt the shock and push it down 2 inches or more and see if that brake line is tight. Then we'll know what to do. One bolt. Two bolt. All right. So, we're down an inch. Oh, that does not move. All right. So it feels like the suspension binds up when it descends that far. But this guy, not quite tight yet. So that's not quite. Not yet any. With the 2-inch subframe drop in there. That's going to be a problem. Figured I should probably take the sway bar link off before I get too far on this. Doesn't want to come off that way. Sometimes you can use a wrench. a noisy shop today. Everybody's working. All the machines are going. The little slow bar link guard. The Trailsport protection package. So let's see if this fits. I had to design this before the car was here. So, ow, my finger. Yeah, it looks like it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Probably. Hopefully. Maybe even. Cool. Alright, we're going to take the arm off. We have our tall jack stand so I don't die. And we'll see what happens. Come on down. Come on out. You bastard. A little off-camera magic. Not tight. Line will be cut down. That. So the one in the middle is the Pilot Trailsport. The one on the right is the old Ridgeline, and the spring here is from the Pilot Trailsport. So we've got the rear suspension taken apart. The arm is missing the bolt. All the other ones are loose, so the bushings are not affecting things. When I pull it all the way down, I notice it doesn't come very far. Only maybe 2 inches down from where it was, and then we hear a clunk. And as I turn things, you'll see it goes up and down. So the clunk is from the inner CV, and the up and down is from them reaching the limits of the travel in their little slots. And then they can't do anything but push back against the wheel. So sometimes we have people put in an aftermarket CV and they get a vibration. In general, the OEM CV axles are much better than the aftermarket ones you get at AutoZone. And what's happening is you've run out of travel, the ability of the axle to change length. So it's not so much the angle as it is the length. And you can see the effect here. So this Trailsport has not got a lot of down travel available, but we'll work around that. We've been here before. We are still experimenting here on Mr. Pilot Trailsport. So, I'm going to see how small we can get away with. So with the big hole in the center, we can get down to 1-inch spacer for the rear. So that's going to let us have 1, 1.5, or 2-inch options. So we got the spacer in there. We can do the one-handed tighten here while we video. So that's a 1/2 inch. Drop the subframe a bit. We're going to have to take care of the steering boot up there. And then we'll tighten up the other guys. that's it. So the subframe got spaced out with 3 of these 1/2-inch thick spacers. This is unpainted because we're doing the prototyping now, but one there, one above that, and one above the back. We'll do the same to the other side, and then we'll do a motor mount the same. So here's our motor mount part out of the big Ridgeline kit. So that's going to work great. Put 2 of those together to make them 1/2-inch thick, and then we will install. So we're going to take the top of the strut off. Take those little plugs to get to the spot. That's it. Thank you. Don't lose your bits. .14mm. Use power tools if you want. Use a shorter extension if you want. I'm going to leave that one partially on. Make sure to use your good ratchet. And the last one over here. This is one of those by feel jobs. You can't see the fasteners anyway. All right. One of the first things we're going to do is take the axle nut off and push the axle in so we don't hyperextend it. First thing is you gotta get this little staking undone, and then you can go ahead and use your impact gun to take it apart. So the first step, taking the strut out, is to take the axle nut off. Because we don't want to overextend our inner CV. Next, we're going to take the sway bar links off. You're going to need a Allen wrench and a ratchet wrench. You've got to hold the center. If you don't hold the center, especially when you tighten them, they never really get tight. That's the most common mistake people make. Don't lose track of your nut. We're going to end up putting a shorter one on here. You're going to take this guy off. Gonna fight it for a while, use some swear words. You take this out, allow everything to come down. Take this one off too. Get in there. This way I don't lose them. Cotter pin comes out. Always use a new cotter pin, unless you can't. Safety wire. Make sure we edit that so I do it in one shot. There we go. Now we're going to take off the 19mm bolt holding the base of the strut. I'm taking the last nut off the top using my trusty step ladder. There it goes. It's now free to move around the vehicle. Now we wrestle it out. So this should be able to move. And just gotta get it up. I should really follow my own advice. Lower the subframes, I say. And then I don't want to do it. What's wrong with you? Great. So we have the strut out. It is down 2 inches from the top. And at that place, we are contacting the limits of this bushing, it looks like. That's interesting to know. Take the brake caliper off, 21. Hang it over here. Hang that out of the way. Alright, so we got the ball joint separated, we got it spaced down, we're going to lift that up, and that comes right up. Put your nuts on. Don't put them up here, of course. These are for the camber adjust, these 2 nuts. We're going to put those in roughly centered, and then we'll adjust it on the alignment machine. Once you have it bolted on, put it back up in the hole and have your friend help you put the nut. So we didn't actually shoot this, but we've got the strut up in there, just 1 nut loosely on top, and then we got it into the spindle, and now we got to get the ball joint in. Taking the subframe bolt out, I'm going to put it back in. I'm going to give it 3 threads. And that'll give me the most distance I can get, because I'm going to need all the distance I can find to make this all go back together. This is the 1.5 inch. So this rubber cap comes off so we can have space for those.
And it pops off real easy. It's nothing like prying on it.
Pops off easy. The Pilot Trailsport arm has this nice little hole, which is pretty handy. If you put the tall jack stand underneath it, you can apply force without it slipping up. So that little bolt in there, we can take that bolt out pretty easy, and then we can just lower it down. Gentle, gentle. And that bolt makes it a lot safer. We had a test part up in there, which is too tall, so we'll put a shorter one in. So we've got the 1-inch spring spacer up there. We got our tall jack stand. We got our safety bolt. And we'll just crank it up. The old one-handed video shoot. Put the rear shock bracket in by just undoing the shock and pulling it down and putting the part in. If you're having trouble lining up the bushing, use the screwdriver to apply leverage just to the bushing, not the whole arm. Passenger side's loose. Bushings are all still tight. You got enough room to get the spring down. Pry this down, put your spacer on top, put it back in the hole. When you're about to put the spring together, make sure the isolator is all the way up there, and make sure the little nipples are in the holes at the bottom. Rear brake line relocation brackets made in mirror image for driver's side and passenger side. There's the rear brake line extension installed. For the motor mount spacer, I find it helpful to undo the motor mount here as well as the other two bolts down there where we actually put the spacer. Two bolts, 12mm head. This bolt, 17mm. Motor mount bolts have 50mm of thread, 5mm of dog nose, 10 by 125 thread pitch. So we're going to need a 60mm long bolt to replace that. With sway bar links, you can use the impact gun to take it off, but you cannot use it to put it on. It'll just spin. Take off this little guy. Take it off from there. 12mm. 18mm. Leave one loosely attached so you don't drop the strut out accidentally. So there's the straight ahead line, and then you can put this about the center when you put it in, and the alignment guy can adjust it for camber when it's on the rack. Okay, we're going to put it all back together now. We have one nut holding this loosely up here to support the weight. We don't have to struggle with it. And then we'll get this into the spindle. And we got it reassembled at the ball joint. It's only had one nut holding it at the top. This is still loose. So put the subframe back together here. And our tall jack stands. Put the subframe spacer in. That side. Now we just go in reverse, taking everything off.
A few moments later.
Okay, here is the wide slides. We've got the prototype brackets up. This one has to be moved a couple of millimeters. The rear one, angles look good. Middle. And then the front. Reassemble it opposite to how we took it apart. Make sure everything's tight again. Put the brake lines back together. Tighten it up. Put your covers back on. Don't forget to tighten up your motor mount bolts once you've finished everything else. The motor mount has this really important ground down here, this copper wire, that if you don't have that nice and secure, you're going to have an engine drivability problem. So there's two bolts here that we loosened off, this one and this one, and then we also had this one loose to make it easier. So don't forget to tighten all three of those up. There's our camber adjust. We set it in a little bit on the initial setup. Negative camber adjust goes towards the in, positive would be towards the out. In the passenger rear, this is slid over a little bit, not centered, and then the brake thing is touching the coil. Going to install this up in the rear subframe area, and I realize it has got a step to it, and I cannot put that there. I'll have to put two individual pieces of DOM in there. So there's the rear readings before adjustment. We were at 1.4 and 1 degrees of camber before. We added another ½ inch of subframe drop. We went from ½ inch of subframe drop to 1 inch of subframe drop. That looks like it's every ½ inch is 0.4 of a degree of camber. Here is the 2024 Pilot Trailsport. This has been equipped with our 1.5-inch lift kit. We lift the front 1.5 inches and the rear 1.5 inches. We've also got these nice wide slide protective steps here that we've developed for it. This is a bit of a challenging project. This has little short suspension arms, and it does not want to get lifted without getting a lot of camber change. In the front, we have dropped the front subframe ½ inch. That still allows all the inner wheel well fender liners to work. We dropped the motor mount ½ inch. In our testing, we found that the front control arm will descend just over 1.5 inches before it binds up and the axle gets tight. And so what we did was we limited the lift to 1.5 inches and then dropped the subframe to ½ inch to give you a little buffer room and to protect your axles and all your other suspension components. It gets a shorter sway bar length and it aligned nicely. In the rear, we had a lot of different choices we tried, and we decided ultimately that we had to lower the subframe 1 inch, which didn't seem to affect the exhaust or anything else attached to it, so we could put 1.5 inch spring spacer in it. This gives you only a ½ inch relative angle change to your axle angles. We did find that it was prone to axle bind also at around 2 inches, but since we're only at ½ inch, we expect to have zero trouble with that. Most of the reason for dropping the rear subframe a full inch with only 1.5 inches of lift is because the camber change was too extreme in the rear. The shocks had to get lengthened to match, of course. And we did one of our normal shock brackets that we use on a shock style like this. This is a boxed steel construction that's all welded together. I think it's much stronger than any sort of washer plate setup that others might use. We've used this successfully for years now on other vehicles, so this style shock is being used in RAV4s and Hyundais, and it's the modern way. The rock rails here, they've got the optional inserts. They are bolted to the frame in the stock location. There's no drilling required. And they're very similar to the ones we've already been marketing for the last generation platform. They there's a number of videos on YouTube of showing them taking a real beating.
Thank God for your slider!
I will caution you that they are limited to how they're fastened to the vehicle. But we have a outer tube here, as well as a tube underneath the seam of the vehicle so that your pinch weld is supported all the way along, and we left clearance for the jack points. Now this vehicle does not have the end caps in the tubes, but we do supply those. Those will be installed later. We're not offering a paint option for this at this point because it's too long to fit into our powder coating oven. We've had a lot of people successfully use a truck bed liner that they buy from an auto parts store to coat those, and reports we're getting is they can coat it for less money and less effort than it would cost to powder coat. It drives beautifully. All the electronics still work exactly the way they're supposed to. The lane keeping, the radar brakes, the cruise control, everything works exactly correctly. There's been no challenges with that. The rear aligns to still a slight positive camber. The spec is 0.4, you might see 0.5 positive. As long as you can get the toe to come in, which we can with our kit, that's what matters. So all in all, I think it enhances the appearance. It looks great. It drives great. It's got more ground clearance and more room for a little bit bigger tire. In the front here, we dropped the subframe half an inch. We dropped the engine motor mount on the passenger side half an inch. And then we put 1.5 inch strut spacer on top. And like all Traxda McPherson Strut vehicles, we put a camber adjustment in the top plate. So you're not going to be stuck with what the lift gives you. You can adjust it into how you want. This aligned beautifully with this setup. We got great results. With the subframe drop, it being only half an inch, the inner fender liner snapped all back up to original locations. It fit great. It's got the stock tire on it still, the 265/60/18, which is a 30.5 inch tire, but I think you can go a little bit bigger from that. We have to do some experiments still to tell. In the rear, we dropped the subframe 1 inch. We dropped the upper shock mount down about 1 inch, and we put 1.5 inch spring spacer in the back. Now you might notice that we have 1.5 inch spring spacer and 1.5 inch subframe drop. The relative change to your axles is only 1/2 inch of angle. This will ensure a nice long life and trouble-free driving. We are going to have this vehicle picked up in about 15 minutes. And I thought I'd go over the last few things to think about when you're lifting this vehicle. This is a modern SUV platform. So like most modern SUVs, it's McPherson strut front, multi-link rear. The sway bars are an integral part of the suspension stiffness. And what that means in plain English is if you go to lift it, you might find it really hard to get all the parts in. The other thing you might find is that when you put the parts in, it doesn't act very lifted. Let me explain. The bushings are quite stiff. And for example, the sway bar bushings, when they're cranked down at the ride height it's at. We come along, stick our parts in it, we want it to be at a different ride height. And because those bushings on the sway bars are an integral part of the handling and feel and roll resistance and stiffness of the vehicle, they want to stay really badly in the place they used to be, and they would resist you lifting the vehicle. So what you do is you can loosen off all the things, put the parts in, get on the alignment rack, and then do the final tighten down of all the bushings. And that way, everything is tightened down at the right height it wants to be. And you won't get any excessive bushing wear, and the bushings won't fight you. In the back, we had the bushings probably taking 1/2 inch away of lift. So when we loosened them off, let it rise to its normal height, equalized it, and then tightened it down, we had a solid 1/2 inch more. So you can really have a big impact on how much it lifts the vehicle depending on how the bushings are set. So in the back, the tight bushings were good for holding it down 1/2 inch. In the front, the tight bushings made it a little harder to install, not terribly much. More of the challenge for installation with the bushings was the rear. I do think though you want to get the full value out of it, and you want to avoid all the pain of installation when you can. So just consider that when you're installing it. Have I loosened the bushings? Have I got the suspension arms to relax and move? And then of course don't forget, when you're done and you're on the alignment rack, give it the final tighten down at ride height, at load, on the tires, and that's how you get the best result. The alignment, the front align, pretty easy. We have the camber adjustments in the front, of course. This is something we do on many of our Traxda kits. In the rear, we had 0.4 positive, which is the limit, but still good. It was very sensitive to camber change in the rear, which is why we ended up with 1 inch of subframe drop and only an 1.5 inch spring spacer. The plus side for you as a vehicle owner, the axle angles are very close to stock. So the front subframe has a 1.5 inch spacer, but a 1/2 inch subframe drop. The rear has a 1.5 inch spacer and a 1 inch subframe drop. So the axles are very gently treated. I don't expect any problems for the life of the vehicle. The parts will last as long as they would on a stock vehicle, I think. It drives really nicely. It feels sporty and agile. It still feels OEM quality, but it's up. I'm really quite proud of this kit and how well it turned out. I think if you ever got a chance to drive it, you'd feel the same way. There's the rock rails with the optional center plates installed. They install quite easy. There's only 6 bolts. They go into the factory locations. We don't supply them painted because our oven is not large enough to take the step. And we found also that people get a better result if they just get some roll-on bed liner from their local auto parts store. You can coat them yourself for $100 in your driveway before you install them, and it's much easier. You also guarantee they won't be scratched when they arrive. She looks pretty, and now it's time for her to go.